Hello students, welcome to Scholar, your one-stop solution for IAS preparation. Students, my name is Anubhav Sir and I am your faculty for Indian Polity. In this module, we'll be going on with our seventh module, that is Philosophy of Indian Constitution. We will be understanding those philosophical pillars on which our Indian Constitution is based on. So let's get on with our presentation. So students, in this module, we'll be understanding about philosophy of the Constitution. In our previous modules, we have studied about historical evolution. Now, we need to understand how exactly a constitution got made, and the most important thing with respect to it is for us to understand philosophy of the Constitution. One way in which we can get a gist of the philosophy of the Constitution when we look at the preamble of Indian Constitution, and I have prepared a separate module with respect to preamble also, but I thought it to be fitting for us to have a separate module just on philosophy of the Constitution, keeping in mind that there could be a question that could be asked in prelims based on this module, and secondly, in most certain ways, there will be one question in your mains examination which will be based on philosophy of Indian Constitution that has been happening for the last 3-4 years. There is no reason why they won't do it again. Keeping that in mind, let's start with our presentation. So students, the first thing that we would need to understand is what exactly do we mean by laws and moral values and what exactly is the link between the two. Now students, simply put, what exactly are laws? जब हम laws की बात करते हैं हम क्या समझते हैं? Laws are objective codification of something that state wants us to perform. लॉ है क्या? लॉ एक ऑब्जेक्टिवली आर्टिकुलेटेड सम डू और डोंट है जो सिटीजन को कम्युनिकेट किया जाता है ताकि सिटीजन उस तरीके से बिहेव करे जिस तरीके से लॉ कहता है. But the question there is, what exactly is the law saying? What exactly is the law trying to achieve is something that we need to understand. If we were to analyze laws, what exactly do we see? That almost all laws are directed towards achieving moral end. Idea is that the whole essence of law lies in what exactly are we trying to achieve, and invariably a good law, a law that can be called as a just law, will be a law that achieves a moral end. A very simple example of being speeding. For example, we want a person to be driving in a particular range of speed when they are traveling, when they are commuting. What exactly is the reason for having such a law where we would find everyone who is crossing the speed limit? Law बहुत आसान है, logic बहुत आसान है. Logic is that we want to embrace the public safety as a value in order to ensure that all the people, be the person who's driving the car or for the people who are traveling in the road, are safe. We would want to impose deterrence by making a law by which we will penalize a person who is not following the directions of the law. Public safety हमने achieve कर ली. In the same way, we have a law against discrimination. We have an SC/ST Act of 1992. What exactly does it say? That it lists all sorts of discriminations and says that whosoever indulges in it will be subjected under the law. That person will be punished in accordance to the law. What is the rationale again? Because we do not want to have a society where discrimination happens, because we want to enable a society where equality prevails. In order for us to ensure equality to prevail, what exactly needs to be done? We need to create a law that prohibits discrimination. Again, the same point. Essentially, what we are trying to do by making a law like SC/ST Discrimination Act of 1992 is to protect people from getting discriminated, and thus by doing so, we are embracing equality. Laws are closely connected to our deeply held values. For example, law might prohibit a law that prohibits discrimination of persons on grounds of language or religion. What exactly is that law trying to do? Law is connected to the idea of equality, a point which I just explained. Therefore, there is a connection between laws and moral values, and Constitution is a document that is based on certain moral vision. Let me explain the second point. So essentially, students, what exactly is a Constitution? In one of our previous modules, we have studied that Constitution are those directives which has been given by the Constituent Assembly to the state of India, on which they must predicate their model of governance. They have been told what are things that you should keep in mind while making a law, what are things that you should not infringing upon, like fundamental rights, what are things that you need to embrace, like directive principles, and that is how we seek for you to carry on the governance of the country of India. What exactly am I trying to say here? What I'm trying to say here is that essentially Constitution has given a moral vision to the state, and the state has been given the authority and responsibility to come good on this moral vision by making those provisions that lives up to the moral goals that our Constituent Assembly has given by the Constitution, and that is getting underlined in the philosophy of Constitution. So Constituent Assembly was the platform on which this vision was stated. Pandit Nehru observed that the Constituent Assembly is not just a body of people or a gathering of able lawyers, rather it is a nation on the move. What essentially it is doing, it is letting go of the past political and possible social structures and wearing a new garment of its own making. Let me just explain this point, because this may very well be a question that might be asked in your paper 2. Or for that matter, it might be a question that might be asked in your essay paper. Essentially, what Pandit Nehru is trying to say, that what exactly is a Constituent Assembly? Constituent Assembly is not just a gathering of lawyers, because most of the members of the Constituent Assembly during that time were lawyers. So there was this criticism that essentially what we have is a Constituent Assembly full of lawyers. तो इस बात को लेते हुए पंडित नेहरू ने कहा that what we cannot say is that this is a assembly just of people or that of lawyers. What exactly is a Constituent Assembly? It is a nation on the move. एक nation जो आगे बढ़ रहा है, ये Constituent Assembly उसको दिखाता है. कैसे दिखाता है? क्योंकि ये कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली भारत को अब वो विजन देगा जिसपे हमको आगे चलना है. ये एक विजन इस तरह का विजन है जो क्या कर रहा है, जो पुराने पास्ट पॉलिटिकल इनइक्वालिटीज थी, जो पास्ट सोशल स्ट्रक्चर्स बना दिए गए थे, पॉलिटिकल हिरार्कीज बना दी गई थी, उनको डू अवे करना है. व्हाट डू वी मीन बाय पॉलिटिकल हिरार्की? As we have discussed in the historical evolution and as you must have studied in modern India, Britishers used to always treat Indians as the second tier, third tier citizens. They never used to give them the same rights as were given to the British citizen, or for that matter, the way in which they used to conduct themselves used to be a lot superior to that of Indians. Thus, there was a political inequality that was in play because they were the colonial masters. This inequality now will be removed. Secondly, there are also social inequalities based on the social structures that were already present in the community of India. The Constituent Assembly here will try to make a constitution and give it a vision which will do away with these social structures, thus to throw away shell of its past political and possible social structures, right? Apart from it, it is a new garment that we are wearing. It is a new India that we are creating, and it is of our own making because all the members of the Constituent Assembly are Indians. They aren't foreigners. They are Indians. They are making their own garments for the people, for the country, and this moral vision will take us forward. The best summary of this vision has been given in the preamble of our constitution, and as I explained before, we will be having a different module on preamble where we will deal every keyword that is present in the preamble. Now the second part is what exactly is the political philosophy of the constitution. We would need to understand it. The political philosophy of Indian Constitution is to break the shackles of traditional social hierarchies and usher a new India, a new era that is based on freedom, equality, justice. So what exactly do we mean by political philosophy? That what exactly should be the political rights of a citizen of India? What should be the way in which we can empower a citizen with political rights and political duties and political privileges? So the whole idea was that essentially every political right that we give him, any political structure that we will create will be based on freedom, that every person is free, equality, all people are equal, and justice. That idea is to inculcate justice to all the people of India. This justice means not just normal, that is legal justice, it also means social justice, it also means political justice, it also means economic justice. So what exactly our political philosophy is emphasizing on? It is emphasizing on liberal ideas. It is emphasizing on democratic ethos. It is also emphasizing on creating a society that is based on egalitarian principles. What is egalitarian principles? That we will make all those efforts required so that all citizens are at par with each other in terms of their political, economic and social capacity and status. Then we also thrive in our political philosophy to make a constitution, to create a secular constitution, a secular society. We also believe in federal principles. What is federal principles? As I have discussed before, federal principle means that there will be two levels of government. One will be the government at the center, which will take care of affairs of the nation as a whole, while there will be a government at the state level, and the state level government will give the governance to that state according to the need of the state, the people who are living in that state. For example, the people of Assam would have their own unique requirements, which might be different from that of the people who might be living in Gujarat, or for that matter living in Tamil Nadu. So what do we want? We want a government which is closer to those people of the respective states. Thus, we believe in federal principles. I hope you are able to understand the political philosophy that we have in the constitution. So what is very important to note here is that the idea is not just that we are trying to emphasize on these policies, these values, but we are also trying to achieve them through peaceful and democratic measures of putting this philosophy in practice. What exactly am I trying to say? That essentially what Constituent Assembly is trying to do here is to bring about a new moral vision, to give new values to the people of India on which they need to work on and build a new nation on. But the idea of inculcating new values might involve changing their previous values, asking them to shift away from their age-old values to the new set of ideas that we are providing you. But the means in which the shift will happen cannot be coercive. The means and the way in which state would endeavor to bring about a new moral vision for India would be based on peaceful means and democratic measures. We will be using these same values in order to inculcate these values, is what it is trying to say. Now we need to understand some of the most important philosophical pillars for Indian Constitution. This may again be a question that can be asked in your prelims examination, or for that matter in your paper 2 of Polity. So what all are the core philosophical pillars of Indian Constitution? Let's look at them one by one. So the first is individual freedom. What exactly is individual freedom? It is a freedom of a person as an individual. That is, a person will have his own individuality, and his own individuality will be reflected in terms of the dignity that person has and the liberty that person will enjoy as an individual. Thus, our constitution bases a moral vision in which there is a commitment to individual freedom, and it is one of the most significant features of the constitution. How exactly is that commitment towards individual freedom happening? By some rights like freedom of expression, that is Article 19, and freedom for arbitrary arrest. Let me again give you a perspective so that you understand it correctly, what exactly are we trying to say here. So essentially, just imagine the time of 1947. So at that time, a lot of things were happening not just in India, but also across the world. So we had the Russian Revolution that had happened. We already had an independent USA and the experience of their constitution. We had the French Revolution and the experience of new values that the French community had brought for itself, which essentially were predicated around freedom of expression and individual freedom, right? So our Constituent Assembly makers, on one hand, have the experience that India had gone through with the colonials, that is, the Britishers, and they also had the knowledge of what all things have developed across the world. As such, they had decided that what we require is freedom of expression, which is at the core of individual freedom, something they wanted to take from France. On the other hand, they also wanted to have freedom of arbitrary arrest, which was more a result of their experience with the British administration. We had the Rowlatt Act, we had more such acts on the part of British Parliament, where they never used to give a reason for arrest, they just used to arrest the person whosoever used to be an inconvenience to the government, that is British government. As such, it was decided that at the heart of individual freedom, there are two rights. First, freedom of expression. It doesn't matter whatever may be the opinion you may be having, as far as it is legitimate in the sense that it is not improper, it is not hate speech. Freedom of expression has been given to all people in India. Secondly, freedom from arbitrary arrest. What does that mean? That it cannot be that state will not give you a reason. There won't be any procedure for state to arrest you. You will be free from any arbitrary action of the state, like you getting arrested or apprehended by any of the official of the state. These and the other individual freedoms, like freedom of conscience, are part of liberal ideology. Now, what is freedom of conscience? Generally, people equate it with only freedom of religion, which indeed it is, but it is much broader than freedom of religion. Freedom of conscience means not just you have the right to practice your own religion, you also have the right to choose your own religion, to change your religion, to start your own religion, to remain atheist, to do whatever you want. For example, you may choose to practice Islam. Right to conscience, freedom of conscience lets you define how exactly do you seek to practice Islam. Your individual freedom of conscience is defined in Indian Constitution by your conscience. That is, it is not that you need to adhere to what community wants you to do with respect to religion. You, in your individual capacity, can practice the religion the way your conscience permits you, and this conscience will be protected by Indian Constitution under Article 25. Students, with respect to a recent judgment on Sabrimala, Justice Indu Malhotra has elaborated on the meaning of freedom of conscience in a very articulated manner. I would urge you to please go through that. It will give you very deep insights with respect to what exactly Article 25 means. Anyways, on this basis, Indian Constitution has a pretty strong liberal character. So one can argue कि जो भारत का संविधान है उसमें इंडिविजुअल फ्रीडम को बहुत ज्यादा तवज्जो दी गई है, इसलिए एक स्ट्रॉन्ग लिबरल कैरेक्टर उभर के आता है. Now, with respect to philosophical pillars, there is one more thing that must be kept in mind, that is social justice. Why social justice? For the reason that when we talk about individual liberty, a lot of times it may very well be that individual liberty would require us to compromise social justice, interest of the society by and large. So, is it that Indian Constitution actually keeps individual freedom above social justice? Let's try to understand it. That classical liberalism always privileges rights of the individual over demands of social justice and community values. What exactly are we trying to say? That when we talk about classical liberalism, it says that at the heart of having a good, progressive modern society lies individual liberty, and this individual liberty will take precedence over what? Social justice as well as community values. That we must always protect individual liberty even at the cost of social justice and community values, because that is when we can create a progressive and modern society. This is what classical liberalism broadly is trying to say. Now, is it that Indian Constitution is trying to follow classical liberalism? Absolutely not. What India has tried to do, that Indian Constituent Assembly has tried to do, is to bring about a system in which we understand individual freedom not at the cost of social justice, nor we try to enable a system which is based on social justice at the cost of individual freedom. Instead, what we want is to create a system, is to create a constitution which envisages an harmony between individual freedom, individual liberty with that of social justice. How exactly will we be able to achieve that harmony is the question, and our Constituent Assembly has very ably found answers to it. The liberalism of Indian Constitution was always linked to social justice. As I said, the whole idea was how well we are able to find harmony between social justice and individuals' liberty. The very simple example and best example is that of reservation for SC and ST. One can argue that if we have a policy where we are giving reservations to SC and ST, essentially what we have done is to create two classes of citizens. These two classes are being treated in a different manner. On one hand, we have something called as general, who are not given reservations, while people coming from SC and ST community are being given reservations. So how can one call it to be a measure which is promoting individual liberty? Our constitution and our Constituent Assembly were very clever, very smart about it in terms of understanding what exactly are we trying to achieve. Our constituent makers knew that essentially there is a need by which constitution is able to promote social justice in a country like India. Why? Because Indian society by and large is unequal. There are people who are depressed, there are people who are dominant, there are people who are from the weaker sections, and we need to take those measures by which we are able to bring them at par. So the whole idea of looking at social justice and balancing it with individual liberty was that we will look upon people not from standpoint of individuals, but from standpoint of people of the same classes. What does it mean? Like a person who's coming from an SC/ST class will be a person who has been depressed for a number of years. So this person will always be not at the same level playing field as compared to a person who comes from a general category. As such, what we will do is to treat this person different from that of person who's from general category. Idea is that within this class, everyone will be treated alike, and within this weaker class that has been identified, everyone will be treated alike. And that is how we are promoting individual liberty for both two classes. At the same time, the fact that we have given reservation to this class, what we have done, we have promoted social justice because we are trying to bring about equality, fairness, justice in our society. I hope you are able to understand how exactly our constituent assembly makers were trying to, our constitution makers were trying to bring about an harmony between social justice with individual freedom. The makers of the constitution believed that the mere granting of right to equality was not enough to overcome age-old injustices suffered by these groups or to give real meaning to right to vote. Another important aspect of the philosophical pillar is social justice with respect to respect for diversity and minority rights, and this again is very important. Let me just explain it to you. When we look at constitutions and democracies across the world, what exactly do we see? That more often than not, there are some factors which are keeping that nation together. For example, in countries like Germany or France, most of the people are practicing one type of religion, one type of language. They have one type of culture that is being practiced all across in the length and breadth of their country. So essentially what we see is that the idea of striking social justice and having a secular outlook is very simple for these countries. But when we talk about a country like India, where there are people ranging from different ethnicity, from different castes, from different religions, from different languages, from different regions, from different cultures, so on and so forth, how exactly will we be able to strike social justice? Why? Because invariably there will be certain classes of people, certain castes, or for that matter, certain sections, certain communities who might be in minority. If they want to have their allegiance towards the Constitution of India, we need to create a constitution which protects their individuality with respect to them being a part of a certain community which right now is in minority. For example, there are minority religions in India. So we would need to make sure the people of these minority religions are not feeling isolated, they are not feeling threatened, that majority will try to take those steps by which they can subjugate them. Thus, that confidence needs to come about, and that too will make a part of social justice that the Constituent Assembly would want to embark on. India is a land of multiple cultural communities with several linguistic and religious communities. So what exactly are we trying to say? The idea is not just to identify individual rights, but also community-based rights. We need to understand that the individual will identify himself not only on the basis of him being an individual, but also on the basis of his religion, of his language, of the community of which he is a part of. As such, his identity must be protected, and this identity requires for us to protect also his identity of being a part of community. That is, community-based rights must be given to every individual. One such right is the right to religious communities to establish and run their own educational institutions. Such institution may receive money from the government. So essentially what we are trying to say, that since we wanted to give this confidence to the people of minority religion or minority communities, we started taking those steps by which they can feel assured, they can have confidence in the constitution. One example is that we have given right to religious communities to establish their religious places and also run educational institutions. Moreover, government can also give you aid in order to run that institution so that you feel protected, that your religion will not be taken away. No steps will be taken in order to change your religion or subjugate your religion with any kind of majoritarian theory. This provision shows that Indian Constitution does not see religion merely as a private matter concerning the individual, but actually it sees it as a matter where Constitution would need to protect the identity of the person. The next philosophical pillar is secularism, and this is a very interesting pillar for the reason India's land of secularism is not different from the Western concept of secularism. How exactly is it? Because generally what secularism means is treating religion only as a private matter. In Western conception, what does it mean? That the affairs of the state are different from the affairs of the religion. State will not interfere in the religion, nor religion should try to interfere in the matters of the state. But when we talk about India, the point which I just explained is valid here, that an individual identifies himself not only as an individual but also as a person who comes from a particular faith and religion. The whole idea is because we are living in such a diverse country, invariably there will be people from minority religion. As such, there has to be a brand of secularism which is unique to the requirement of India. What exactly is that brand of secularism? Let's try to understand. Indian secularism, rights of religious groups. So essentially what we are trying to say here is that Indian constitution has recognized inter-community equality, and it was felt that it is necessary as equality between individuals. A person would want to feel being equal to the other people. Every citizen should feel that he is equal to any other citizen of that country. What was realized that in order to give that confidence that you are equal to other citizens, we also would need to give him that confidence that your religion is also equal to any other religion in the view of state, and the state will protect your religion. This was because person's freedom and sense of self-respect was directly dependent upon the status of his community. I hope you are able to understand the point that I am trying to say. If one community was dominated by another, then its member would also be significantly significantly less free. We do not want that. Thus, what do we need to understand? That we need to create a system which is marked by absence of domination. We need to create a system where one religion, which may be in majority, which may be dominant, is not trying to dominate a religion which is in minority. Then its members would feel dignified, and they will have self-respect, and they will feel freedom. In order to do that, the whole idea is that our brand of secularism should be marked by absence of domination. Thus, Indian Constitution grants right to all religious communities, such as right to establish and maintain their educational institutions, a point which I just covered. Hence, what do we understand? Freedom of religion in India means freedom of religion of both individuals and communities. Right? So, what exactly have we understood? The whole idea is that we are giving them the freedom as an individual. We are giving them freedom of conscience. What is freedom of conscience? That you can choose and practice your religion. On the other hand, we are also giving them community-based rights on their religion, so that you as a community can cherish your religion, can celebrate your religion, can perpetuate your religion, and state not only will protect it, will also take those measures by which it can aid in development of your religion. I hope you are able to understand that India's brand of secularism in a lot of ways is different from that of Western concept. So let's talk about where exactly India, that is state, can intervene with respect to secularism. Separation in India could not mean mutual exclusion. So in India's understanding of secularism, it doesn't mean state cannot interfere in matters of religion. For example, we have such practices like untouchability. We had a practice like sati. In recent times, we had talaq-e-biddat, that is triple talaq, which got banned by Supreme Court. What exactly is happening over there? What is happening is that state identified that there is a religious practice, a religious custom, which in a gruesome way is affecting someone's right to dignity and right to freedom. For example, untouchability. What is it? It is violative of Article 17. Sati, it is violative of Article 14. It is violative of Article 21. It is violative of almost all the articles. What exactly are we trying to say here? What we are trying to say here is that state can choose to intervene on those matters where it believes that any custom which might be a part of someone's religion is affecting individuals' identity, individuals' freedom of expression or any other fundamental right in a major manner. Talaq-e-biddat was removed because it was believed to be violation of Article 14, Article 15 and Article 21, that is right to life, equality before law, and no discrimination on the basis of sex. It was believed that it is not right, and that is why it was removed. Such customs were so deeply rooted and pervasive that without active state intervention, there was no hope for resolution. State would need to interfere in such matters in order to ensure social justice. As such, India's brand of secularism can also involve interference of the state in the religious features and religious customs of the people. Such intervention was not always negative. State could also help religious community by giving aid to educational institutions, a point that we have covered. So what exactly are we trying to say? And the statement, students, is very important for your mains examination. That in India, separation between religion and state does not mean their mutual exclusion, but it means principal distance. So a question can come where this might be used as a code and they may ask you to comment on it. Essentially what we need to comment, exactly what we have just explained, जो भारत का सेक्युलरिज्म है वो वेस्टर्न कंसेप्ट से अलग है, क्योंकि वेस्टर्न कंसेप्ट में सेपरेशन की बात की गई है, पर भारत में प्रिंसिपल्ड डिस्टेंस की बात की गई है। वो इसलिए जरूरी है क्योंकि वेस्टर्न वर्ल्ड में ज्यादातर देशों में एक रिलीजन या दो रिलीजन प्रैक्टिस होते हैं, एक लैंग्वेज बोली जाती है, तो एक अलग तरह की यूनिटी है। बट जब भारत की बात करते हैं तो यार डिवर्सिटी बहुत ज्यादा है, अलग अलग तरह के रिलीजन है, अलग अलग तरह के कस्टम्स है, सो ऑन सो फोर्थ। एज सच इंडिया's brand of secularism cannot be exactly the same of Western brand of secularism, and in India we will have principal distance. Then we will give the examples that I have discussed. So that allows the state to be distant from all religions so that it can intervene or abstain from interference to promote liberty, equality and social justice. So the idea is that we would want to interfere in religion only to that extent where we are able to ensure liberty, equality and social justice. Now we come to the fourth philosophical pillar, and this again is very important, that is universal franchise. What does it mean? It essentially means that every citizen of India will be given right to vote. There will be no discrimination on the basis of someone's caste, sex, creed, ethnicity, region, etc. Why exactly is it very significant? Because during that time, at the time when this was brought into Indian Constitution, universal franchise in terms of voting was still a very new idea. In fact, most of the Western countries, which are called to be very liberal in their attitude in their constitutions, they were coming up with right to vote for women in early 1900s only. That is, countries who have been independent, who have been they never had a colonial master or anything. Even those countries took so long in order to bring something as basic as right to vote for women. But when we talk about India, the point when we got liberated from the Britishers, what did we do? We brought about the idea of universal franchise. In universal franchise, the only condition is the age bar. That person above the age of 18 years old will be given the right to vote. But the moment he is above the age of 18 years old, he is at par with all citizens. So you may be a person who comes from a very rich background or a very poor background. You may be a person who is a man or a woman, but the value of your vote will be exactly the same. This is what we mean by universal franchise. Universal franchise was also reaffirmed as early as Constitution of India Bill in 1895 and Motilal Nehru Report in 1928. So students, if you remember, this is very important for your modern history preparation also, that in 1928 what had happened was, because the Britishers had challenged Indian National Congress that if you are so confident about running the country by yourself, can you just come out with a sample constitution? And then Motilal Nehru came out with Nehru Report in 1928, and it actually mentioned all the provisions of what kind of constitution which a country like India would have, and even in that what we had was the idea of universal franchise. So you see that we were always very pro with respect to having the idea of universal franchise in a scheme of things, in a scheme of democracy. So students, what exactly have we understood in this module of ours? We have understood some of the core philosophical basis of Indian Constitution. We have understood what do we mean by a national individual freedom, that this is at the heart, at the core of India's philosophy of the Constitution. Then we studied about social justice, that what we seek to do is not to create a country that is based only on individual freedom and liberty. We seek to create a country which is bringing individual freedom in harmony with the need for social justice. Then we also studied that very important aspect of India's constitutional philosophy is to have ways in which they are able to protect diversity and minority. Then we also studied about secularism. We studied about Western concept of secularism and how exactly is it different from Indian concept, and what exactly is the need for India to have that concept of secularism. We also understood about universal franchise, that India was among the first countries which, after getting liberated, were very quick to bring about universal franchise, which was still a very young idea during those times. And then we also have already studied about national identity. Let me just explain this point very briefly. I have already taken this in one of our previous modules, that essentially what we see is that our philosophy, be it individual freedom, social justice, respect for diversity, secularism, universal franchise, in a way is giving every Indian an identity, a national identity. An identity where a person believes that I come from a country, I am a part of a nation which believes in equality, which does not believe in discrimination, which believes in universal franchise, which believes in secular ideas, which believes in respect for all religion. And this identity, again, is a part of philosophy that we seek to give to our citizens. I hope this module was fruitful. For more such videos, please log on to Scholar. Thank you.